Hi, everybody. I'm Super Julie Braun. You can call me SJ, please do. I'm the founder and CEO of Super Purposes, and today is our last day in this series, which is pretty awesome. Robert, go ahead and introduce yourself, and everybody, welcome to the last of our live broadcasts.
Hi, I'm Robert Brathe from Saratoga Springs, New York. And SJ and I have been working together on a lot of great things for many years, so it's happy to be here on our crowdcast and our live talk with you here today.
Yep. And today we're talking about interviewing oopsies. Now, you might call them disastrous goofs. We just call them oopsies because everybody makes the mistake. College students and recent grads often make. So be sure to share this with a friend, or you can invite a stranger. And if you're already here on the broadcast with us, and you've got a question throughout the show, just go right down below somewhere. It's somewhere down there is the ask a question. Go down there and vote or ask a question. And even if you're watching this on a replay, that's good too, because we'll come back and answer the questions later.
All right, I'm on board. Strangers are our friends, so we're happy to see some familiar faces here in the chat area. And if you're going to throw out some love for us on social media, some hashtags, hashtag get a job, hashtag college student interview goofs, hashtag kill the interview. And be sure to connect with us at Super Purposes on both LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And remember to take our hilarious poll. So we're going to kick things off today with our topic of why do college students need to ace their interviews? So I'm going to talk a little bit about why interviews are so important. These days, companies don't like wasting a lot of time. They want to get a feel for you. And most of these interviews are going to take place just like this, where you're on camera or you're over the phone. And you've got to demonstrate poise, passion, and professionalism, among many other things, in these interviews. So it's important to be ready, to get over some of those hangups you might have. And hopefully today's talk will give you some of those insights. So SJ, what do you got for us on this topic?
Well, I think we should first take a look at what most people are thinking when they're getting ready to interview. So look at this guy, because very often they're sitting there and they're saying to themselves, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? And that's kind of in that moment. I mean, does anybody here relate to that at all? Where you're waiting for the interview and you're like, what am I going to say?
I think we need those crickets playing in the background again.
We do. It would be awesome if our control room could get cricket sound going.
For sure. And this is really the number one mistake college students make. They just don't know what to say. You got to have something to say. And how should recent grads prep for interviews, SJ?
Well, practice. I get this question all the time. People will say, I'm socially inept. I don't know whatever to say. Well, then you have to practice. And we want you practicing with your roommates, with your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your gender nonconforming friends, the cat, the dog, the kids. Doesn't matter who you're practicing with. Practice, practice, practice. And you want to practice this one specific way. It's called out loud. You want to say the words out loud. So let's take a look at what it sounds like when you've actually practiced inside your head instead of out loud. You sound like this student who does the laters. So practice out loud. Robert, how good do you sound inside your head?
Absolutely delightful. I'm a genius in my head. But sometimes, when I wasn't so prepared, I sound like that later student. I might throw in filler words. I might throw in things like so and or am if you're really pretentious. So you want to practice out loud because you won't hear yourself, if you don't do that. And it sounds totally different what's going on in here and what's coming out of here. So you've got to get some practice going. And with that, one of the things we hope you're doing is hearing from you and seeing, how many of you actually do some practice. Like, one of my favorite tricks is actually practicing in the mirror. So we'd love to hear in the comments area some of you who might actually do some things to prepare and what some of your best practices are.
Right. We've got a message here. Tara is just letting everyone know that the ask a question and the poll is under you, Robert, not me. So it's under you. So go ahead and point. There you go, everybody. That's where you take the poll. Oh, that was a really good instruction that you just gave with the 2 fingers, 2 to 4 fingers right there. No one's going to miss it. So I'm thinking maybe we have some time to see our poll. And the question is on the poll. I'm looking here on my phone, everybody, so please take the poll. How did you vote? The question is, what mistakes have you made while interviewing? And what's the number one answer, Robert? You see it?
Feeling unsure of myself. Where's my security blanket? I want to hide.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine somebody bringing like one of those weighted blankets with them? Then, out in the lobby, just put on the weighted security blanket waiting for your interview. I mean, can you imagine?
Well, let me tell you, I had an interviewee that was like that, SJ. So we were ironically in a hotel lobby, and we were doing interviews all day, and I just happened to look out the window, and there's a young man walking in, but his father was pushing him from behind because he didn't want to come in the building. And there was no way after that we were going to hire this guy. So sure enough, during the interview, they didn't have any kind of poise or want to be there. It was a sad situation, but it was one of those things where we knew right away that it just wouldn't be a good fit.
Oh, it happens. People get intimidated and worried. And so I understand why that's the number one winner.
Sure.
Well, let's go ahead and take one question. We've got time right now, Robert. So it looks like the number one question is from our Super Purposes team who asked it. And they wanted to know which is better, to have a conversation or just answer questions the interviewer asks. So, Robert, what would be your answer to this question?
I think you really got to look at the flow, and really the interviewer is going to guide how that discussion goes. Very often, some of the best interviewers will, walk and have a conversation with you before you get to the formal interview setting, or if they get on a Skype like this, they'll start with some banter of how's your day going, did you watch the Super Bowl, those type of things. So it's important to certainly let the interviewer control the flow, but certainly it's important that in some cases you put the questions back in the form of a question after you've answered the question thoroughly enough.
We're going to talk about throwback questions in a moment.
Awesome.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Robert, because I think what most people do is they sit there and they wait for the question. Mm-hmm. And they sit there and they wait, and there's this awkward silence. And then they answer the question. So they're over here answering, saying, oh, here's my answer. And then they're waiting more for the next question. And it sets up this scenario where your interviewer actually becomes more and more and more powerful than you do. And what you want to create at the interview is a dialogue where you're going back and forth, asking questions. We're going to actually demonstrate that, I think, somewhere later on today. But I just think that is such a huge mistake that people make. They just sit there waiting. Mm-hmm. And the more you create that conversation, the more the other person, the interviewer, is starting to think of you like a colleague. They start thinking to themselves, oh, I really like Robert. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he'd like to go to happy hour with us on Friday with the team. They start thinking about you in a relationship versus I'm interviewing this guy and we'll see if they are up to snuff. So that's how you want to work that interview situation. Okay, well, let's move on. I think that answered that question. Mm-hmm. And let's move on to We weren't able to get to all the questions this week. If I look back on the week, I know that, one day we only got to one question. There were probably 5 questions. So we're going to do a special Facebook Live, everybody, next week. Zeph, our control room, is putting up the link right now. So check out the link. It's right down below. And stay tuned for details. So let's move on, because I want to see how Sarah handles an interview. So here's Sarah, everybody. I mean,
This is Sarah is somebody who clearly hasn't practiced here. My, oh my. Or maybe she's practiced too much. It could have been either direction there. And I'm wondering if anybody else, when you look at this, has ever done something like this during an interview. It's the oopsies. So don't be afraid. We learn by doing, and it'd be very interesting to see how you have responded when you've made a mistake like Sarah has here.
It's happened before, I'm sure, to everybody, some way, shape, or form. Sarah is someone definitely that I think we can all relate. And I think the second problem is when people don't develop the conversation that we were talking about earlier, and they wait and wait and wait and wait for those questions to be asked. So let's talk about throwback questions. So Robert,
yeah.
Lay one on me.
Yeah, so let's show them how it's done.
Okay.
So SJ, what are your greatest strengths?
Well, I think I'm a creative problem solver. I am a tenacious, never give up, gritty leader, and I bake a mean cupcake. What strengths are you looking for in your ideal candidate? I'm just curious.
That was awesome. And I'll tell you why. Anytime you give a good throwback question like that, it tells people that you're inquisitive, that you're thinking ahead, and that you really want to belong, and the better your throwback question is, you're going to sound like you're interested, you're going to sound more intelligent, and as I like to say, a good question will answer 3. So if you answer the question SJ did with her leadership style, what she enjoys doing, and some of her skills and strengths, and then follows it up with a good question, it just makes you stand out where other people don't.
Absolutely. I also think, I'm gathering information in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, Robert, if you came back and said, well, leadership is nice, being gritty is fantastic, great that you're a problem solver, but we're looking for a team player. We're looking for someone who's super organized, and we're looking for a process professional. You just told me 3 things that are now going to become my strengths.
Yes.
You just gave me the information. So remember, everybody, the interview is an opportunity for you to be a private eye and find out, what do they want? And when you know what they want, then you just deliver what they want. It doesn't mean that you're lying. It just means that you shift your focus to what it is that they really care about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should check in with our audience and see what kind of comments they've been typing. It looks like we've got Bloomy is saying that she records herself.
That's splendid.
I love that idea. She records herself speaking to review her answers. I think that is genius. I've never thought of that idea. And let's see what else is kind of bobbling up. Let's take another question, maybe. Do you want to do that, Robert?
Yeah, I'll give you this one from Tara Jean. Is dress for the job you want, not for the job you have? Good advice.
And so I feel 2 different ways about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think to at least dress in conjunction with the culture is very important. So if you were going to go to a surf company and everybody's dressed in board shorts and T-shirts, you don't want to show up in a suit. That would be a mistake. But for you to show up maybe dressing a little bit better than the position that you're going in for is always a good idea. I think in a way you're kind of demonstrating to your audience that you care. And so I like that a lot. Robert, what would you say is the answer to this question? Because some people might feel insecure if somebody comes in and they're dressed better than the interviewer.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you about Suit Boy, who's a famous story from my past. We worked in a very jeans and T-shirt culture and, hoodies. And he showed up in a suit. It wasn't a full suit, but, a dress jacket and button-up shirt. And, we were just hiring part-time, and he was looking for full-time, clearly. So we didn't have an opening for him at the time. But 9 months later, we opened a more professional office, and I told my boss, we got to call Suit Boy up. And they're like, who the hell is Suit Boy? I'm like, remember that guy that showed up in a suit for our part-time interviews? And we hired him, and he's still with that company. So it just shows that, going a little bit beyond. And in that case, again, it wasn't, Ron John shorts and togas. It was, a little bit more, jeans and khakis and polos. Yeah. But he dressed the part. He dressed to the best of his abilities without overdressing. And it worked out, and he got a better job than he imagined.
And he had an awesome nickname, Suit Boy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that? All right, let's take one more question, I think. Let me see. This one is, what is the best way to prepare for an interview? And it's from our friend Jamie. Mm-hmm. So, Jamie, you can go to Google and you can look up and find out what are the top 35 most often asked questions. I think that's a great place to start. So find out what those normal questions are that most interviewers are going to ask you. And then I like people to go into the bathroom. I know it's a weird place, but go into the bathroom, shut the door, tell your family, hey family, I'm going to be talking to myself for the next half hour. Stand in front of the mirror and talk out loud. We keep talking about talking out loud, and again, people will be in bed and they'll be interviewing in their head and they sound like geniuses, and then they go to the interview and they sound like they're not geniuses. Mm-hmm. So practice out loud in front of the mirror. I keep pointing over here because that's where my bathroom is. So practice in front of the mirror and play both parts. Be the interviewer asking the question, and then play you. So you can kind of do this back and forth. Here I am being the interviewer. Now I'm going to answer my question, and watch yourself. Watch the smile on your face. Watch the bling bling of your eyes. Listen to the way you pause, or maybe if you get too long on something. Sometimes the first time that you do this in the bathroom, you're going to say to yourself, number one, I sound horrible. Number two, I look like an idiot. You're going to have all of those thoughts. But as you do it more and more frequently, Jamie, you will get very, very good. And I think that you're going to be a spectacular interviewer because you're such a smart cookie. Robert, what's your advice to Jamie?
Yeah, just to wrap up this segment, I think, on the other side of things is just, get to the park. If it's a face-to-face, show up about 15 minutes early so you know where you're going. If it's a phone or Skype interview, make sure your internet connection is working, 10 to 15 or 20 minutes beforehand, and make sure you're wearing pants. I remember somebody told me that they did a Skype interview and the person asked them to stand up, and the three guys were in their boxers. It was a group interview, and I don't think any of them got the job.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, let's wrap this up today, Robert. So everybody, connect with us on LinkedIn, friend us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And this whole week, we've been asking what's next. Well, we want you to come to our free webinar. It's just down below. It's the green button, everybody. Press the green button. Join us on finding out how to stop filling out online applications and still get the job. And you will get immediate access to our webinar. Robert, any last thoughts?
It's been great joining you this week. I hope you all click on that green button, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Robert and Zeph, and everybody. Have a super day.